Impressive bio. Anything that we missed?
So I did take off the fact that I'm a Perth Glory supporter because it's quite embarrassing at the moment.
What's the AFL side that's doing poorly as well?
All of them.
Right. I was gonna say, didn't Brisbane? I'm Brisbane based, by the way, so I'm pretty sure Brisbane took home the AFL, NRL, men's and women's. Not too bad, but no one's
Okay, that was. Thank you very much. In fact,
All right. So it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Rob on stage today. Just as a brief introduction for those that don't know about CITIC, would you mind just sharing a 30-second summary of CITIC?
sure. We are magnetite operation, so it's slightly different from the vast majority of iron ore operations in WA. What makes that unique is the fact that we have a large processing plant, and obviously the challenges that people have been reading recently from other miners that are trying to put this process together. It's quite a unique process. And so our challenges come very much not just from the mining side of it, but also from the processing plant side of it as well. So we have a single mine just about an hour's out of Karratha.
So we didn't actually know each other before we started coordinating this event, but Tracy Jones, our marketing lead at Mipac, came across an announcement about the Global Mining Guidelines AI and Foundations white paper that you're a committee member of. And we thought, geez, wouldn't that be a fantastic conversation to have at this event? So that's how this all came about. Now, when we first caught up, you had a really beautiful story that you shared with me, and I thought, and the story was about improving performance in the mobile fleet at CITIC. And I thought, this is supposed to be about minerals processing, but what I heard was something that paralleled really nicely with what we're experiencing within the minerals processing part of the value chain. And so we actually created this spot so that you could share that story, because I think there's a lot for the audience to learn. So can you take us away and share your journey at CITIC and from the beginning, because I think it parallels a few of the things that Elsa was sharing with us as well.
Yeah, it was funny. I was listening to your story and I was thinking, it's taking me back to 2018. So 2018, I started with CITIC as a program manager for the MPRS program, which is a mine production reporting system. And it was a top-down look at how we could actually improve our reporting in mining. And of course, at that point, it means funny that reporting is actually central to that, because it's thinking about it as just a reporting problem. We want better reports. What are we going to do? But what that did mean was that we had to look at the whole problem. Okay, we want better reports, but where are we going to get them from? Like how's the process running at the moment? And we were running our fleet of two-way radios and Excel spreadsheets. I was up at the porta cabin one time, and somebody was like, "Why is somebody down at EXO2? Oh damn, is that a 4 or a 6? Oh, sorry, you should be at EXO4." And that was common because we were getting people to do very stressful jobs. So we put in a fleet management system. We put in an LTE network, a 4G network, and we also introduced a total reporting system. And what was interesting about that was we started off with a few reports, but what happened was in that 7:30 meeting, which is ours is 7:45. Don't know what time you guys do yours. But in that meeting, the mining director had one of his brand new reports, and he showed it, and that argy-bargy between the two different departments. Well, the other department didn't have a report, didn't have the information, and suddenly we managed to get into a reporting war. Well, I've got the report. I went to the meeting and he had a report. I don't have a report. What are we going to do? We'll write a report. We'll write a report. And then we got this great situation where everybody was writing reports because somebody else had a better report than what they did. And how does he know what's happening? And I don't know what's happening. And that created this beautiful, positive kind of feedback loop where everybody was actually trying to get better than somebody else, and we all won. You know, all boats, were lifted. What's that? Rising tide lifts all boats. So um, that helped that attitude of actually looking at data. Nobody's talking about data at this point. Everyone's just talking about reports. Nobody cares where they come from. And I think that sometimes we forget that. We talk about AI, we talk about everything. It's like, why are we doing it? We're not doing AI. Like, we're doing the director's report. That's what we're doing. Doesn't matter how it happens. And so that was the easy part. I mean, it wasn't easy, but it was the easy part of what we had to do. Part of the project we had to do was also to do with asset health. So we have quite an aging variety of mobile fleet, and for some of them it's great. The new ones, you just plug it in, no problem. You're getting the data coming off it. For other ones, we had somebody there connecting into the CAN bus, putting the foot on the accelerator, going 42. Okay, if you press the accelerator, it's 42 on the CAN bus. Somebody mark that down. There's no specs. So, like, sometimes you have this idea when we're looking at, everyone's got ChatGPT, and you just go, well, somebody somewhere had to go and get all that information at some point. And sometimes that is dirty. It's not easy, but somebody's got to do it. And they're the bits, as you say, where, you look at it and you think, that's easy. All we have to do is plug these things in. But they're the ones that actually kind of catch you out, because they're the dirty ones, they're the hard ones, but they're the ones that are more important, because that information coming off a machine which nobody knows anything about, that's information that you've suddenly got in your Pi Historian, and you've got 1 second data intervals that your engineers can now look at and can save an engine. And when you're talking about $500,000 for one engine, like, you're getting a lot of big returns from that. But it's long and it's hard, but it just needs to get done.
So getting the right sensors in place on that equipment was a fundamental, foundational step on that journey.
Oh, absolutely. And we were getting sold the idea of going for big packages at the beginning, but it's not the big packages. Definitely plan high, but when you implement low. Make sure you've got those sensors in place, because if you've got the sensors in place, you can be putting that up. I mean, you could put it into an Excel. I hate Excel, but you could use Excel, and Excel would give you something. It would give you value. So start at the point where you're going to get instant value, and then build upon that.
You've spoken about the reports that you were generating, and what I understood was that those reports were for managers or the leadership team. Can you talk about how you were feeding that information back to the operators, and what contribution that made to their performance?
I think because the process was very manual, and I think to the point before, it was about getting the manual parts of those processes that everybody was doing and automating them. Because at the end of the day, if you're saving somebody an hour out of the day, then they're doing something that's more interesting. And you start with a handful of reports, you go and get more, you get more, you get more. You automate a process here, you automate a process there. I think the important thing is always to start small. Don't try and boil the ocean, because you'll never get there. And have that constant feedback loop and conversation.
And the parallel that I was connecting your story to with Elsa's story is talking about that bottom 50%, right? Don't even worry about the AI yet. Just get the bottom 50% right, because there's value in that bottom 50%. Can you tell us about the pause that you did once you started seeing some of those improvements, and how long did that pause take? What was the value that you obtained from that without providing sensitive data, and where are you now?
So I think the other thing like, I'm an IT guy, so my apologies, but I do want a recording of what you just said, that we do most work in the whole plant, I think is what you said. Yeah, something like that. um, but I mean, I think sometimes what we forget from an IT point of view, is like we know about AI systems, we know about predictive maintenance, we kind of go through that process. But you might be talking to somebody who's a reliability engineer who doesn't want that. That's not what they want. That's not what they need. What they need is a dashboard that shows them the exhaust temperatures of the 12 exhausts out of one engine. That's what they need. That's what they need at the time. And I think one of the things that we had is like we would h- we would do a push. Like we would say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to put the sensors on. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And then it'd be like, yeah, okay, but that's enough. And so we get to a point where we would push enough that it would be good enough, and people were getting benefit out of it. But then you get the interesting part where somebody comes back to you a few years later and says, and this happened to us at the beginning of the year. Remember we talked about that thing 6 years ago? Can we do it now? We're getting to the stage where, and this is really in the last six months. We're getting to the stage where people are using ChatGPT and then coming to work and saying, "Well, why can't I do this at work?" And you're like, "Well, okay, let's have a wee chat about this." And one of the conversations we had was, "Well, I want to use AI to solve these problems." Okay, well, we'll get somebody to have a chat with you. And so the chat actually came and said, okay, we've got 6 problems that you've just identified, and we can use normal, like ordinary data techniques or software engineering techniques. Like, we could have done this years ago for you. I mean, you don't say that, but what you do say is, I'll build you an AI for that, and we'll have it next week. But the thing now is that people are using that technology at home and coming to work and saying, I want this now, because now I can see the possibilities. And that was always a problem from my point of view, was like, how do you paint the possibility? Like, how do I get that message across when somebody's got a different problem that they're trying to solve? One thing I hadn't realized was I've got 2 watches on today. There's a reason. That's an Apple Watch, and it's because I'm doing steps. I didn't mean to do this, but it actually, it's a good analogy, because this watch tells the time and gives me steps and my emails and probably talks to some satellite somewhere. I don't know. It does all of those things. This one tells the time. I wear this one all the time because most of the time I just want to know what the time is. That's all I want to know. And having this thing here, this is a distraction. Like, I don't actually look at the time anymore because I'm so bloody looking at my emails and looking at my notifications and the GPS and a message that came through. And it's just like, but this tells the time and this is what I want. And so sometimes I think we forget about that. I think we're always trying to get an Apple Watch on somebody, when really, if you get this on their wrists and get them using this is more useful. And I think we've got into that problem. And we talk about AI, like, we're not solving AI problems. We're solving problems. Like, let's get rid of the AI bit. Like, that's just confusing, because it's like, we don't go in and say, I want to solve this problem with this algorithm. Like, nobody tells you that, because nobody wants that. They just want something fixed. So I think that's part of the problem.
I'll get you one better. I've got a mechanical watch, so if I don't take steps, I can't tell the time. Um, one of the things that I heard that you talk about there is that what you were able to achieve. Elsa spoke about how to capture the hearts and minds of people, particularly after you've had a failure, right? And we all talk about fail fast, learn, and try again. Well, that doesn't always work in our industry when we're moving bulk commodities, right? It's a lot of money that goes down the drain. Can you tell us a little bit about turning resistors into and trying to push something to now people trying to pull that thing? How did you achieve that? You talked about that person that asked, can we do that 6 years later? How did you achieve that?
Um, uh, it's old style stuff, really, isn't it? It's just talking to people. It's talking to people. It's keeping the conversation opening. It's helping people fix their problems. And sometimes it's solving the problems that you didn't actually think you were wanting to solve, but you just solved them for them anyway. So, maybe you get a call because this macro for the Excel spreadsheet that they run the whole plant on isn't working. Well, you help them out. You desperately want to pull the Excel spreadsheet away from them and, give them, but that's not their problem. And so it's all about trust, isn't it? It's all about trust, but not giving up. So I think one thing that's important is, like, certainly on some of the stuff that we've done is, like, if it's not failure. Like, if you don't get the message across, it's not failure. It just means that the time maybe is just not right. And I think sometimes you've got to remember that, is that, you come back a couple of years later with a slightly modified message, but it's almost the same message. And at some point, the time is right for everybody to do that. And so it just so happens in that situation, the time was right now. And now we can help them. And I think you've got to try, certainly from an IT perspective, you've got to try and not be the IT guy. You got to try and not be the one that they just want to change things. They don't want to allow our OT network to connect to our IT network because it's going to have a cybersecurity event. That's why. But it's like it is like you don't want to be that. You don't want to be that guy. You want that guy that just shuts everything down to say, no, that's not how you should be doing it. You should be doing it like this. That's not how things work. And I think if once you build that trust up, and go back again and again and again, because if the message right, it will get listened to at some point. It just sometimes it takes time.
Elsa talked about one of her applications. I'm going to call it Golden Batch because I don't know the actual name that you called it, but it was looking into the past and telling you what inputs you had and what variables you should select for those different inputs. If I understood it correctly. It was really fascinating for me talking with the different potential speakers for today about what they've found works and what they've found doesn't. And I think the gentleman over there asked a similar question. What was fascinating for me is people talked about moving from complicated to complex. Elsa spoke, don't worry about recovery or things that have chemical reactions. Focus on things that are complicated in the complicated space rather than in the complex space. What did you find worked really well within CITIC around, was it vehicle uptime? Was it vehicle turnaround times? What did you see that actually added value at CITIC in the work that you guys were doing?
Real-time understanding about what's happening. So if a truck had a problem, then somebody would have to go down in the pit to plug in a USB stick, to download everything on the USB stick, and then get back up again. I mean, this thing's obviously doing production runs, so you might not get it today, maybe it's tomorrow. But somebody can first of all, somebody could look in real time from their office as to what's happening. And then once they're doing that, and I think also you mentioned this, is like then you automate that. So, a classic example for us was, I think it was 12 exhausts off one engine. And it was very simple. It wasn't anything complicated. What's the mean of the 12? And, does one go over the mean by whatever, standard deviation or something? And this thing, an alarm went off and somebody looked at it and said, well, let's bring the truck in. So they brought the truck in and sure enough, they had a look at it and it was blocked. Now, what they found was that would have always passed every single maintenance check that they had. They didn't check for that bizarre situation. But if that had kept going, it would have blown the engine. And so that ability to get that information in real time was gold.
All right, we're going to change gears a little bit, pardon the pun. We spoke a little bit about Global Mining Guidelines Group, and that's how this connection formed. We promised no selling, but we're going to sell a little bit just right now because it's a good cause for the industry. Can you tell us a little bit about Global Mining Guidelines Group, the project that you're involved with, and then finish up with how others can get involved with Global Mining Guidelines Group?
Sure, thanks. It's basically a group of peers. It's not for profit. It is very much aligned around everyone getting together and kind of sharing experiences. There's a number of working groups. I got involved just for exactly that reason. Interestingly, you get involved because, well, I got involved because my boss volunteered me to be honest. And so I'm involved in the AI working group. And I think what's really, really interesting is that you listen to your peers and you have honest conversations like this. And what you find out is that everybody's saying, so what are you using the AI for? I don't know. What are you using the AI for? And it doesn't get talked about a lot, but there's not a lot of people using AI. People are using products. You might be using an autonomous truck and it might have something in it. You might have AI in it. But we're not using AI. We're just using products. We're just using techniques. And one of the great things about about GMG, and anyone can go onto the website and join up, is that conversation. And so one of the things we realized is that you have battery electric vehicles, like they will write a specification or a guideline for battery electric vehicles. But what you do for AI, because AI is just, it's a technology. And so one of the things that we realized is that one of the most important things that we could do is just the education piece. What can we do to bring people who have some experience, and what can we do to help the rest of the mining industry understand the technology, understand how it's getting used, and just have a conversation about, what do we do next? Who do we talk to?
And lots of mining companies are involved. So if you're not sure whether your mining company is involved with GMG, you can find that out through GMG website, I believe. You get to participate depending on your membership, and anyone can attend and download content that GMG produces. So it's a fantastic resource for people to use. Encourage you to get involved. Sadly, my time is up again, but that means it's your time. So please feel free to raise your hand, wait for a Mipac person to come over with a microphone and ask a question. Oh, there's one at the back. Let's do the back first, and then we'll go with the front.
All right. Andrew Compson again from Aviva. So, Rob, in your time, and we've talked about data, information, which then becomes knowledge and then becomes wisdom. Where do you see the capturing of that knowledge and wisdom that we lose when people retire, and how can that be beneficial going forward?
I think one of the problems that we have typically in industries is that we always rely on the guy that sits in the corner that knows everything about everything, and it's not a technology problem, and that those processes should be captured, and everybody should be following it. And I think, as Elsa says, once you've got a perfect process perfect, there's no such thing as a perfect process, but good enough. Then you can start automating it. So I think that's where we lack the time and in actually capturing those processes properly, because that person's always there, and then unfortunately they leave, and we lose that.
Yeah, hi. Ian Murray. I'm with Curtin University. Just to do with your industry body that you're involved in, have you looked at ethical AI and the issues with ethics in AI, particularly when it starts to come to capture of the human element, fatigue, human movement, radio comms, those sort of things? You look at those at all?
So I guess, we look at those as part of privacy, anyway, as part of as part of our day-to-day operations. But the ethical AI part is interesting in, like, it captures a lot of stuff that Elsa was talking about like, what information are you capturing? Should you be capturing it? Should you be putting it into a model and reproduces it? And I think that we have touched on it, but I think from an industry point of view, we're a bit far away from that yet. Once we're actually using it really, really solidly, then maybe that's something that we need to look again.
Just to add on that, if I could, to me, the greater concern is not so much the privacy, but the decisions that are actually made by the AI, and are they ethical? And it leads to, bringing in things like explainable AI, but that the ethics of AI is a bit of a worry.
Yeah, look, the explainable one is actually interesting in that it's a trust issue as much as an ethical issue, because if you don't understand why the decision that has been given to you, then you don't trust it, and then like what do you do? Where do you get? I mean, we had a situation whereby we had be careful. We had a project that was looking at our drilling information and the effects it had down in the plant. And we had somebody came in, did some really good work. But then when questioned about, well, why does it say we should do this to our process? Because we're talking about changing the parameters in our processing plant. And we were getting questions of, well, why should we do this? Now, this is many years ago, and unfortunately, the answer was, it's kind of our secret sauce, which is not the answer that engineers want to hear. What the engineers want to hear is, well, we've done some analysis, and we've got, we can explain it to you in scientific terms. So I think explainability is very much a trust issue, and I think it's hugely important. Because otherwise, you don't want to press the big red button if you don't know what you're doing.
Apologies, we're going to have to call it there. Just a reminder that Rob's going to be around for the networking drink, so feel free to grab Rob and have a chat with him a little bit more about his experiences at CITIC. That's a wrap for the third session. Before I hand it over to Lena to talk about next, can you just join me in thanking Rob for volunteering his time today?